The sun was setting over the small village, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tejo wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at his garden with tired satisfaction. The tomatoes were growing well this season, round and red. The carrots were pushing up through the dark soil. His small vegetable garden was not much, but it was his whole world. Tejo was a simple man who lived alone at the edge of the village. He had a small wooden house with a shed in the back. Every morning, he woke up early to water his plants. Every evening, he pulled weeds and checked for pests. His neighbors said he talked to his vegetables like they were his children. Maybe he did, after losing his real family years ago in the war. The garden was all he had left. He gathered the ripe vegetables in his basket and headed inside. His dinner would be simple tonight, just rice and vegetable stew like always. As he walked past the tomato plants, something caught his eye. Several tomatoes had bite marks on them. The edges were torn, not cut clean like a knife would do. Tejo knelt down and examined the damage. This was strange. The bite marks were too big for rats or rabbits. Whatever ate his tomatoes had small but sharp teeth. He looked around the garden but saw nothing unusual. The shed door was slightly open, though he remembered closing it that morning. For 3 nights, something kept stealing from his garden. Tejo was not an angry man. He understood hunger. Instead of setting traps to hurt the thief, he decided to leave food out. That evening, he cooked extra rice and made a big pot of vegetable stew. He filled his second-best wooden bowl and placed it outside near the shed. The night was quiet except for the crickets singing. Tejo sat inside his house with the door slightly open, watching through the crack. The moon was bright enough to see the yard clearly. Hours passed. He almost fell asleep when he heard a soft sound. Something was moving near the shed. A small figure crept out from behind the wooden structure. At first, Tejo thought it was a large dog, or maybe a young wolf. Then the moonlight hit it fully, and his breath caught in his throat. It was a dragon, but not like the huge, magnificent dragons he had seen flying high in the sky. This was a child, no bigger than a 7-year-old human. The dragon child had silver scales that looked dull and dirty. Her movements were slow and careful, like she was afraid of making noise. She approached the bowl of food with her nose forward, sniffing carefully. Her golden eyes darted around, checking for danger. When she seemed sure no one was watching, she began to eat. Tejo had never seen anything like this. Dragons were powerful creatures who ruled the skies. They lived in the great mountain palaces far away. What was a dragon child doing alone in his garden, so thin and scared? Her ribs showed through her scales. Her tail dragged on the ground instead of curling up proudly like healthy dragons did. The child ate quickly, desperately, like someone who had not had a proper meal in days. She licked the bowl, completely clean, and then looked around hopefully for more. Tejo's heart ached. He knew that look. He had seen in the mirror after the war when food was scarce, and every day was a struggle to survive. Slowly, very slowly, Tejo pushed his door open a bit more. The small sound made the dragon child freeze. Her head snapped toward the house, and her eyes went wide with terror. For a moment, they stared at each other. Tejo could see she was ready to run. He raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He picked up his own bowl of stew, the one he was going to eat for dinner, and stepped outside. The dragon child backed away, but she did not run. Hunger kept her there, watching. Tejo sat down on the ground, making himself small and non-threatening. He placed his bowl on the ground and pushed it forward gently, then scooted backward. The message was clear. This food was for her too. The dragon child tilted her head, confused by this strange human behavior. Several minutes passed in silence. Tejo remained sitting, not moving, barely breathing. Finally, the dragon child took one careful step forward, then another. She kept her eyes locked on him, ready to flee at any sign of danger. When she reached the bowl, she grabbed it quickly and backed away to eat at a safer distance. Tejo smiled softly. He began to hum an old song, one his mother used to sing when he was young. The melody was gentle and sad, a lullaby about the moon watching over lost children. The dragon's ears perked up at the sound, but she continued eating. When the bowl was empty, the dragon child looked at him again. This time, there was less fear in her eyes, maybe a tiny bit of curiosity. Teho stood up very slowly and bowed his head respectfully. Then he walked backward into his house and closed the door, leaving the child alone in the moonlight. That night, Teho could not sleep well. His mind was full of questions. Where did this dragon child come from? Why was she alone? Where was her family? Dragons were not known to abandon their young. Something terrible must have happened. The next evening, Teho prepared food again. This time he made even more. He added sweet potatoes because he remembered hearing that dragons like sweet things. He placed 2 bowls outside, one near the shed and one closer to his door. Then he sat inside and waited. The dragon child came earlier this time, right after sunset. She went straight to the bowl near the shed and ate quickly. When that was empty, she looked at the second bowl near the house. She stared at it for a long time, then at the door where she knew Teho was watching. Slowly, she approached the second bowl. This brought her much closer to the house, closer to the human. Her whole body was tense, ready to spring away, but the sweet potatoes smelled too good to resist. She ate them carefully, one small piece at a time, never taking her eyes off the door. Teho opened the door, just a crack. The dragon child stopped eating, but did not run. Progress. He began humming the same song from the night before. After a moment, she continued eating while he hummed. When she finished, she made a soft chirping sound, almost like a thank you, before disappearing into the darkness. On the third night, something changed. When the dragon child came for her meal, she did not hide immediately after eating. Instead, she sat near the shed and watched the house. Teho came outside and sat on his doorstep, keeping distance between them. He ate his own dinner while she watched him. They sat like that for an hour, 2 lonely souls sharing the same space under the stars. Teho talked softly about his day, about the carrots he planted and the clouds he saw. The dragon child did not respond, but her tail slowly stopped twitching nervously. By the time Teho went inside for the night, he noticed her scales looked just a little bit brighter than before. The morning sun felt warmer than usual as Teho worked in his garden. He was pulling weeds when he heard a soft sound behind him. Turning slowly, he saw the dragon child sitting near the shed, watching him work. It was the first time she had come during daylight hours. Her silver scales sparkled in the sunshine, looking healthier than when he first saw her. Teho smiled and continued his work, pretending this was completely normal. He talked to his plants like he always did, explaining to the tomatoes that they needed more water and telling the carrots they were doing a good job growing strong. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the dragon child tilt her head, listening to his one-sided conversations. After an hour of working, Teho stood up and stretched his back. He walked to his house and returned with a cup of cool water and some leftover rice balls wrapped in leaves. He placed them on a flat stone halfway between himself and the dragon child. Then he returned to his work, without looking at her directly. Minutes passed. Then he heard the soft sound of her moving. She approached the stone carefully and picked up a rice ball. She sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened with surprise. Teho had added honey to the rice this morning. He heard her make a pleased chirping sound and smiled at himself while pretending to focus on his vegetables. By midday, something wonderful happened. The dragon child moved closer to where Teho was working. She sat about 10 feet away, watching his hands move through the soil. When he dug a hole to plant new seeds, she leaned forward with interest. Teho noticed her curiosity and decided to speak to her directly for the first time. "These are radish seeds," he said gently, holding up the tiny seeds in his palm. "They will grow into vegetables underground. You cannot see them growing, but if you are patient, they will be ready in a few weeks." The dragon child did not respond with words, but her golden eyes followed every movement as he planted the seeds and covered them with soil. When he moved to the next row, she surprised him by following. She sat beside him, close enough that he could have reached out and touched her scales. Teho's heart beat faster, but he kept his movements calm and steady. He dug another hole and dropped in seeds. Then, Feeling bold, he held out a seed to the dragon child. She looked at it, then at him, then back at the seed. Slowly, she extended her small clawed hand and took it from his palm. Her scales felt warm and smooth against his skin. "You can plant it," Teho said softly. "Just drop it in the hole and cover with dirt." The dragon child stared at the seed in her hand for a long moment. Then, with great care, she placed it in the hole Teho had dug. She used her claws to gently push soil over it. When she was done, she looked up at him, and Teho could swear she was smiling. They worked together for the rest of the afternoon. The dragon child helped him plant an entire row of vegetables. Her claws were surprisingly gentle, perfect for digging small holes. When they finished, Teho noticed the soil around the seeds felt warmer than normal. He realized the dragon child was using her inner fire to warm the ground, helping the seeds grow faster. That evening, Teho prepared dinner while the dragon child watched from the doorway of his house. She did not come inside, but she was close enough to see everything he did. He cut vegetables, boiled rice, and made a soup with herbs from his garden. He hummed while he cooked, and the dragon child's tail swayed slowly to the rhythm of his song. When dinner was ready, Teho did something new. Instead of eating inside while she ate outside, he brought his bowl out and sat on the doorstep. He placed her bowl beside his, only a few feet apart. The dragon child approached carefully and sat down next to him. For the first time, they ate their meal together, side by side. The sky turned purple and orange as the sun set. Teho talked about his life, about how he used to have a family, but lost him long ago. He told her about his daughter, who loved to help in the garden, who laughed when butterflies landed on her nose. His voice grew sad, and he stopped talking for a moment. The dragon child made a soft sound, almost like a whimper. Then she did something that made Teho's eyes fill with tears. She gently placed her small clawed hand on his arm. It was the first time she had touched him by choice. The gesture was clear. She understood loss. She understood being alone. As the stars began to appear in the sky, the dragon child finally spoke. Her voice was quiet and rough, like she had not used it in a very long time. "Hannah," she whispered. Teho looked at her with wide eyes. "Is that your name?" The dragon child nodded slowly. "Hannah, that is a beautiful name," Teho said with a warm smile. "My name is Teho. It is very nice to meet you, Hannah." Hannah's tail curled slightly, a sign of contentment in dragons. She looked at the stars above them and spoke again, her words coming slowly and carefully. "I got lost. Big storm. Could not find home. Scared to fly. Too tired. Hungry for many days." Teo's heart ached for this small creature. "How long have you been alone?" "Many days. Maybe 20. Maybe more. I forget." 3 weeks. This child had been surviving alone for 3 weeks. Teho could not imagine how frightened she must have been. "You are safe here," he said firmly. "You can stay as long as you need. I will make sure you have food and a warm place to sleep." Hannah looked at him with those big golden eyes. "Why you help me? You're not scared?" Teho thought about his answer carefully. "When I first saw you, I did not see a dragon. I saw a hungry, scared child. No child should be alone and afraid. And no, I am not scared. You've been very kind and gentle." That night, Teho prepared the shed for Hannah. He cleaned out the old tools and made a comfortable nest using blankets and straw. He hung a small lantern inside, so she would not be in the dark. When Hannah saw what he had done, her scales brightened with emotion. "For me?" she asked quietly. "For you," Teho confirmed. "Your own safe space." Hannah walked into the shed and turned around several times before settling into the blankets. She curled up with her tail wrapped around her body. Before Teho could leave, she spoke one more time. "Teho is good human. Hannah will remember." The next morning, Teho woke to find Hannah already awake and sitting in the garden. But she was not alone. Old Boare from a neighboring house stood at the fence, staring at the dragon child with wide eyes. Teho's stomach dropped. He had been so focused on helping Hannah that he forgot other people might see her. Boare was the oldest person in the village. She knew many things that others had forgotten. As Teho rushed outside, ready to explain or beg for silence, Boare raised her hand to stop him. "I will not tell anyone," the old woman said quietly. "But you should know, young Teho, that dragon has royal markings on her scales. See the silver pattern on her neck? That is the mark of the ruling family." Teho looked at Hannah, who was watching them nervously. He had not noticed the special pattern before, but now he could see it clearly. A silver crown shape was naturally formed in her scales. "What does that mean?" Teho asked. Boare's face was serious. "It means she is not just any dragon child. She is probably a princess. And when her family finds out she is missing, they will search everywhere. They will come here eventually." Teho felt cold fear wash over him. "Will they punish me for helping her?" "That depends," Boare said, "on whether they believe you meant well or meant harm." She looked at Hannah, who had moved closer to Teho protectively. "But I think anyone can see this child trusts you. That should count for something." After Boare left, Teho sat down heavily on the ground. Hannah came to sit beside him, sensing his worry. "Something wrong?" she asked. Teho looked at the small dragon who had become his friend in just a few days. He knew their time together might be short. Soon, someone would come looking for her. But for now, she was here, and she was safe, and she was not alone anymore. "Nothing is wrong," he lied gently. "Everything is fine." 2 days passed in peaceful routine. Teho and Hannah worked in the garden together each morning. She was learning which plants needed more water and which ones preferred shade. Her little chirps of happiness when vegetables sprouted made Teho smile. For those 2 days, he almost forgot Boare's warning about Hannah being royalty. On the 5th morning since their first meeting, everything changed. Teho woke to the sound of heavy footsteps and metal clanking. He sat up in bed, his heart racing. That sound was unmistakable. Soldiers, many of them. He rushed to his window and looked outside. His blood ran cold. The village was surrounded by royal guards in shining silver armor. Their armor had dragon symbols carved into the metal. Long spears stood tall in their hands. At least 20 soldiers formed a circle around the village, and more were coming down the main road. In the center of the formation was a tall figure on a white horse, wearing a captain's helmet with red feathers. Teho's hand shook. This was it. They had come for Hannah. He looked toward the shed where the dragon child was still sleeping. What should he do? Should he wake her? Should he hide her? But where could a dragon hide from other dragons? 3 loud knocks hit his door like thunder. The sound was so forceful that dust fell from the ceiling. Teho took a deep breath and walked to the door. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to stay calm. When he opened the door, he came face to face with the tall captain. The man was older, maybe 50 years old, with a scar across his left cheek and eyes that looked like they had seen many battles. His expression was stern and cold. Behind him stood 6 more soldiers, all watching Teho with suspicion. "Are you the one called Teho?" the captain asked. His voice was deep and commanding. "Yes, sir. I am Teho," he answered, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am Captain Daesung of the Royal Dragon Guard. We are searching for a missing child of the royal family, a young dragon, silver scales, about this tall." He held his hand at waist height. "She has been missing for 3 weeks. The entire kingdom is looking for her." Teho felt his mouth go dry. He could lie. He could say he had seen nothing. But he had never been a good liar, and these soldiers would probably search his property anyway. "Have you seen anything unusual in the past weeks?" Daesung asked, his eyes narrowing. "Any strange creatures? Any sounds in the night?" Before Teho could answer, he heard a soft gasp behind him. He turned to see Hannah standing in the doorway between his house and the yard. She must have woken up from all the noise. Her golden eyes were wide with fear as she saw the soldiers. Every soldier immediately dropped to one knee. Captain Daesung's stern face changed completely. Relief washed over his features, followed quickly by concern. "Princess Hannah," he said, his voice much gentler now. "Thank the skies you are alive. Your mother, Queen Yuna, has been searching desperately for you. The entire kingdom has been worried sick." Hannah did not move toward the soldiers. Instead, she stepped backward and pressed herself against Teho's leg. Her small claws gripped his pants. She was trembling. Daesung noticed this, and his eyes shifted back to Tahoe, this time with suspicion. Human, step away from the princess. She is scared. Tahoe said quietly, please do not frighten her more. I am not frightening her. You are holding her here, Daesung said, his hand moving to the sword at his belt. What have you done to make the princess afraid to come to her own people? He did nothing bad. Hannah's voice rang out, surprising everyone. She spoke louder than Tahoe had ever heard her speak. Tahoe is my friend. He gave me food when I was hungry. He was kind when I was scared. The soldiers exchanged confused glances. Captain Daesung stood up slowly, studying the scene before him. A royal dragon princess was defending a common human gardener. This was unusual indeed. Princess, your mother commanded us to bring you home safely. You have been missing for 3 weeks. Do you know how worried everyone has been? Daesung's voice was firm, but not unkind. I got lost in the storm, Hannah said, her voice becoming quiet again. I could not find my way home. I was too weak to fly far. I was so hungry and cold. And this human found you? Daesung asked. I found his garden. I took some food. He could have chased me away or hurt me, but he did not. He left food for me. He sang songs. He made me feel safe. Hannah pressed closer to Tahoe. He is a good person. Daesung looked at Tahoe with new eyes. The suspicion was still there, but something else too. Maybe respect. Maybe confusion. Human, did you know she was royalty? No, sir. Tahoe answered honestly. I only found out 2 days ago from my neighbor. Before that, I just saw a hungry, scared child who needed help. And after you found out she was a princess, why did you not report this immediately? You could have been rewarded greatly. Tahoe looked down at Hannah, who was watching with those trusting golden eyes, because she was finally starting to feel safe. I did not want to scare her by bringing strangers before she was ready. One of the younger soldiers whispered to another, he protected her without seeking reward. That is honorable. Daesung heard this and frowned. He was a soldier who followed orders, but he was also a father. He could see that the princess genuinely cared for this human. The situation was more complicated than he expected. Princess Hannah, your mother wants you home. Will you come with us willingly? Daesung asked. Hannah's tail wrapped around Tahoe's leg. Will Tahoe come too? That is not necessary. He is just a... Then I will not go, Hannah said firmly. Her small voice carried surprising strength. If Tahoe cannot come, I will stay here. The soldiers looked shocked. A princess was refusing a direct order. This had never happened before. Daesung's jaw tightened. He could not force the princess. That would be disrespectful and could hurt her. But he also could not return without her. Princess, be reasonable. Daesung tried again. This human has his own life here. He cannot just leave his home. Why not? Hannah asked. You made him answer questions. You came here with many soldiers. You scared him. Now he must come to the palace to meet my mother. She will want to thank him for keeping me safe. Tahoe's stomach dropped. Go to the dragon palace? Meet the dragon queen? This was getting worse by the moment. Daesung saw he had no choice. The princess was being stubborn and time was running out. The queen needed to know her daughter was safe as soon as possible. Very well. Daesung said with a heavy sigh. Tahoe, the gardener, you are commanded to come with us to the dragon palace. You will explain yourself to Queen Yuna, and she will decide what to do with you. The way, he said, it made clear this might not end well for Tahoe. Meeting the queen could mean rewards or could mean punishment for unauthorized contact with royalty. Dragons had strict laws about humans interacting with their kind. Villagers began gathering at a safe distance, watching the scene unfold. Tahoe saw a Barre standing near her house. The old woman nodded at him slowly, as if saying to be brave. Other villagers whispered among themselves, shocked that quiet Tahoe was being taken by royal guards. Can I bring anything? Tahoe asked quietly. Just yourself, Daesung replied. We leave immediately. Tahoe looked at his small house, his garden with the newly planted seeds. He did not know if he would see them again. He thought about running, but where would he go? And he could not abandon Hannah now. not when she needed someone she trusted. As if reading his thoughts, Hannah squeezed his hand with her small claws. "I will protect you," she whispered. "I promise." A dragon child promising to protect a human from other dragons. The situation would be funny if it were not so terrifying. Teho managed a weak smile and nodded. Boare pushed through the crowd of villagers. Before the soldiers could stop her, she reached Teho and placed something around his neck. It was a small charm on a leather string, carved from old wood. "This belonged to my grandmother," she said quietly. "It is a protection charm from the old times, when humans and dragons lived in peace. May it bring you luck." Captain Daesung watched this, but did not interfere. He gestured to his soldiers. "Form up. We return to the palace immediately. The queen has waited long enough." As the soldiers prepared to leave, Hannah held Teho's hand tightly. Several villagers called out wishes of good luck. Children waved goodbye, not understanding the danger Teho was walking into. The journey to the Dragon Palace was beginning, and Teho did not know if he would return home alive. The road to the Dragon Palace wound through forests and over hills that Teho had only seen from a distance. Captain Daesung led the group on his white horse, while other soldiers marched in formation around them. Teho walked in the center, and Hannah refused to leave his side. Several soldiers had offered to carry Hannah or let her ride on their shoulders. Young dragons often got tired on long journeys, but Hannah shook her head at every offer. She held Teho's hand and walked beside him, her small feet keeping pace with his longer strides. The first few hours passed in tense silence. Teho could feel the soldiers watching him. Some looked curious, others looked suspicious. He was just a simple gardener in worn clothes, walking among elite royal guards in shining armor. He felt completely out of place. Around midday, they stopped near a stream to rest and drink water. Teho sat under a tree, and Hannah curled up next to him. She was tired, but tried not to show it. Her scales had lost some of their morning brightness. One of the younger soldiers approached with a canteen of water. He had a kind face and looked barely 20 years old. "For you and the princess," he said, offering the canteen to Teho. "Thank you," Teho said, taking it gratefully. He helped Hannah drink first, then took a sip himself. The young soldier hesitated, then sat down nearby. "My name is Minho. I have been in the guard for 2 years. He looked at Hannah with a gentle smile. "We have all been searching for the princess. Every soldier in the kingdom was looking. When she disappeared, Queen Yuna was heartbroken. I did not know who she was." Teho said quietly, "I just saw a child who needed help." Minho nodded. "That is what makes it remarkable. You help without knowing there would be any reward." He glanced back at the other soldiers. "Captain Daesung seems harsh, but he is actually fair. He is just worried about what the queen will think. Will she be angry with me?" Teho asked. "I do not know," Minho admitted. "The queen is powerful and protective of her family, but she is also wise. When she sees how much the princess trusts you, maybe she will understand." Captain Daesung called for everyone to continue moving. As they walked, more soldiers began talking quietly with Teho. They asked him questions about how he found Hannah, what he fed her, and how he gained her trust. Teho answered honestly, explaining about the leftover food, the gentle songs, and the patient waiting. An older soldier with gray in his beard shook his head in wonder. "I have served the royal family for 30 years. I have never seen a dragon, especially a royal one, trust a human so completely. Usually it takes years to build such a bond. Maybe it is because I did not try to force anything." Teho said, "I just let her come to me when she was ready." As the afternoon wore on, the path became steeper. They were climbing into the mountains now. The air grew cooler and thinner. Teho noticed Hannah was struggling to keep walking. Her steps were slower, and she was breathing harder. Without thinking, Teho stopped and knelt down. "Hannah, climb on my back. I will carry you." The soldiers stopped and stared. A human offering to carry a dragon princess was unheard of. Dragons were proud creatures. They did not let themselves be carried like common baggage. But Hannah did not hesitate. She climbed onto Teho's back, wrapping her small arms around his neck and her tail around his waist. She was heavier than a human child because of her scales, but Taeho managed. He stood up and continued walking. Captain Daesung watched this with an unreadable expression. He said nothing, but signaled for the group to keep moving. As they climbed higher, Taeho began to struggle. The path was steep, and Hannah was getting heavier with each step. His legs burned and his back ached. Sweat poured down his face despite the cool mountain air. But he did not complain or ask to stop. Hannah had trusted him, and he would not let her down. Minho noticed Taeho's struggle and moved closer. "Let me help," he offered, and took Taeho's pack. Another soldier offered his walking stick. Slowly, the guards who had been suspicious of Taeho began to help him instead. They reached a flat area just as the sun was setting. Captain Daesung ordered them to make camp for the night. The Dragon Palace was still half a day's journey away, and traveling in darkness through the mountains was dangerous. The soldiers set up tents and started a fire. Taeho carefully lowered Hannah from his back. She had fallen asleep during the last part of the climb, her head resting on his shoulder. He laid her gently on a blanket near the fire. Captain Daesung approached and handed Taeho a bowl of hot soup. "You did well today," he said gruffly. Many men would have complained or given up. She needed help. Taeho said simply, "That is what friends do." Daesung sat down across the fire from him. His stern face softened slightly in the firelight. "Tell me truly, human, what do you want from all this? Fame? Gold? A position in the court?" Taeho looked at the sleeping Hannah, her scales glowing softly in the firelight. "I want nothing except to know she is safe and happy. When we reach the palace and she is with her family again, I will go back to my garden. That is all I want." The captain studied him for a long moment. "You are either the most honest man I have ever met or the best liar." "I am just a gardener," Taeho said tiredly. "I am not clever enough to be a good liar." A few soldiers chuckled at this. The tension around the camp seemed to ease. As the night grew darker, the soldiers began sharing stories around the fire. They talked about their families, their homes, and their years of service to the royal family. One soldier asked Taeho about his life. Slowly, carefully, Taeho told them about his lost family. He spoke about his wife and daughter, who died during the war years ago. He explained how the garden became his way to heal, how growing things helped him feel less alone. The soldiers listened in respectful silence. Many of them had lost people too. War touched everyone, human and dragon alike. By the time Taeho finished his story, the soldiers were looking at him with understanding rather than suspicion. "You helped the princess because you know what it is like to be lost and alone," Minho said quietly. Taeho nodded. "Yes, I cannot save my own daughter, but maybe I could help someone else's child." Captain Daesung stood up and looked at the stars. "The queen will hear your story tomorrow. I cannot promise what she will decide, but I will tell her what I have seen on this journey. I will tell her that you are an honorable man." "Thank you, Captain," Taeho said. As the fire burned low, most soldiers went to their tents to sleep. Taeho wrapped himself in a blanket and lay down near Hannah. The little dragon sensed him nearby and moved closer in her sleep, curling against his side for warmth. Minho, who was taking the first watch, smiled at the sight. "She really trusts you completely." "I will not betray that trust," Taeho whispered, "no matter what happens tomorrow." The night was cold in the mountains, but Taeho felt Hannah's warmth beside him. Above them, millions of stars filled the sky. Somewhere up ahead in those mountains was the Dragon Palace and Queen Yuna. Tomorrow would decide everything. Taeho thought about his small house, his garden with the freshly planted seeds, and the simple life he loved. He might never see them again. The queen could decide he was dangerous or that he had broken some ancient law by helping Hannah, without permission. But looking down at the sleeping dragon child who had brought light back into his lonely life, Taeho knew he would not change anything. These past 5 days with Hannah had reminded him what it felt like to care for someone again. Even if tomorrow brought punishment, these memories were worth it. He touched the wooden charm that Boare had given him. The old woman said it was from a time when humans and dragons lived in peace. Maybe that time could come again. Maybe his friendship with Hannah was proof that different creatures could trust and care for each other. Or maybe he was just a foolish gardener, who would pay dearly for his kindness. Tomorrow would tell. Teho closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to one thought. What would he say to the Dragon Queen? How could he explain that he meant no harm, that he only wanted to help a lost child? Beside him, Hannah made a soft sound in her sleep. Her claws gripped his shirt gently, like she was afraid he might disappear. Teho placed his hand over hers and whispered a promise into the darkness. I will be brave tomorrow. For you. The Dragon Palace appeared through the morning mist like something from a dream. It was carved directly into the mountain itself, with towers that reached toward the clouds. Silver and gold decorations covered the walls, sparkling in the early sunlight. Waterfalls flowed down the sides of the mountain, creating a constant sound like distant thunder. Teho had never seen anything so magnificent or so terrifying. As they approached the massive gates, dragons of all sizes flew overhead. Some were guards patrolling the sky. Others were nobles going about their daily business. All of them stopped to look when they saw the royal guard returning with Princess Hannah. The gates opened with a deep rumbling sound. Inside, the palace was even more impressive. The floors were polished stone that reflected like mirrors. Tall pillars held up ceilings painted with scenes of dragon history. Servants in fine clothes rushed about, and when they saw Hannah, many of them gasped with relief and joy. The princess has returned, someone shouted, and the news spread to the palace like wildfire. Captain Dae-sung led them through long hallways and up grand staircases. Hannah stayed close to Teho, holding his hand tightly. She was home, but she seemed nervous. Teho understood. She was about to face her mother after being missing for 3 weeks. They finally reached 2 enormous doors decorated with dragon carvings. For guards stood on either side. When they saw Hannah, they immediately pushed the doors open. The throne room was the largest space Teho had ever seen. It could have fit his entire village inside. At the far end, on a throne made of crystal and silver, sat Queen Yuna. The queen was breathtaking and frightening at the same time. She was 3 times the size of a normal dragon, with scales that shimmered like liquid silver. Her eyes were the same golden color as Hannah's, but much more intense. A crown of twisted silver sat between her horns. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. When Queen Yuna saw Hannah, her fierce expression crumbled. "Hannah!" she cried out, her voice echoing through the chamber. Hannah let go of Teho's hand and ran across the long room. "Mother!" she called back. Queen Yuna descended from her throne faster than Teho thought possible for such a large creature. She met Hannah halfway and wrapped her wings and arms around her daughter, making sounds of relief and joy. For several minutes, the powerful queen was simply a mother who had found her lost child. The entire court watched in silence as the reunion happened. Teho stood with Captain Dae-sung and the soldiers, unsure what to do. His heart was happy to see Hannah reunited with her family, but he also felt a deep sadness. This was goodbye. After what felt like forever, Queen Yuna finally released Hannah and looked her over carefully. "Are you hurt? Are you sick? Where have you been?" The questions poured out. Hannah shook her head. "I am fine, Mother. I got lost in the storm and could not find my way home. I was weak and scared, but then I found help." Queen Yuna's expression changed immediately. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on Teho. In 2 powerful strides, she crossed the distance between them. Teho found himself staring up at a dragon queen who could crush him with 1 claw. "You!" Queen Yuna said, her voice cold and sharp. "You are the human who had my daughter?" Teho bowed deeply, his legs shaking. "Yes, your majesty. My name is Teho. Explain yourself. What did you do to my child?" The queen's voice was dangerous now. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Before Teho could speak, Captain Dae-sung stepped forward. "Your majesty, if I may, this human found the princess when she was lost and hungry. He provided food and shelter without knowing who she was." Without knowing? Queen Yuna's eyes narrowed. Or did he know exactly who she was and kept her for ransom, for political gain? No. Hannah's voice rang out. She pushed between her mother and Teho, spreading her small wings protectively. "Mother, Teho did not know I was a princess. He just saw a hungry child and helped me. He was kind when I was scared. He sang songs and made me feel safe. Queen Una looked down at her daughter with surprise. Hannah had never been brave enough to speak up like this before. Hannah, step aside. I need to question this human properly. No, Hannah said firmly. Teho is my friend. You will not hurt him. The court gasped. A princess was defying the queen. This was unheard of. Queen Una's face was unreadable. She looked at Teho again, studying him carefully. A human befriending a dragon, a royal dragon. Do you understand how many laws this might break? I did not know about your laws, your majesty, Teho said quietly. I only knew that there was a child who needed help. I would do the same for any creature, dragon, or human. Anyone can say kind words. Queen Una said coldly, words mean nothing. I need to see the truth. She raised one clawed hand and touched Teho's forehead. He felt a strange sensation, like cool water flowing through his mind. Then he realized what was happening. The queen was reading his memories. Teho did not resist. He had nothing to hide. The queen would see everything exactly as it happened. The throne room fell silent as Queen Una watched Teho's memories play out. She saw him discovering the bite marks on his tomatoes. She saw him leaving food outside for the unknown creature. She saw his first glimpse of Hannah, frightened and thin. She saw him sit peacefully in the darkness, humming songs and waiting for Hannah to trust him. The queen saw the moment Teho offered his own dinner to the dragon child. She saw him prepare the shed with blankets, so Hannah would have a warm place to sleep. She saw them working together in the garden, planting seeds side by side. She heard him tell Hannah about his own lost daughter, his voice breaking with old grief. Most importantly, Queen Una saw Teho's heart. She saw that when he looked at Hannah, he did not see a princess or a political opportunity. He saw a scared child who reminded him of the daughter he could not save. His kindness came from a place of deep pain and deeper compassion. When Queen Una removed her hand from Teho's forehead, tears were flowing down her face. The fierce, powerful dragon queen was crying in front of her entire court. You lost your child, she whispered. Yet when you found mine, you protected her like she was your own. Teho nodded, his own eyes wet with tears. I could not save my daughter, but I could help yours. Any parent would understand. Queen Una stood tall and addressed the entire court. Her voice was strong and clear. This human, Teho of the Garden Village, has done what all our soldiers and searchers could not do. He found my daughter when she was lost and kept her safe when she was in danger. He asked for nothing in return. He expected no reward. She turned back to Teho. The penalty for unauthorized contact with royalty is severe, but you had no such intention. You simply saw a child in need and helped her. This is not a crime. This is honor. The court began to whisper excitedly. Queen Una raised her hand for silence. Therefore, I declare Teho to be a friend of the Dragon Court. This is a title given to only 3 humans in all of our history. You will have our protection, our respect, and our gratitude. You may visit the palace whenever you wish. You will never want for anything again. Teho bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I am honored, but I only wish for one thing. Name it. Queen Una said, I wish to return to my garden. It is a simple life, but it is mine. I have seeds planted that need tending. The queen looked surprised, then smiled. You truly want nothing else? No gold? No land? No position in my court? Just my garden, Teho said. And perhaps, if it is allowed, I would like to see Hannah sometimes. Hannah rushed forward and hugged Teho tightly. I will visit all the time. Every week. Mother, please say I can visit him. Queen Una's expression softened completely. Of course you may visit your friend, Hannah. He has earned that right and more. That evening, there was a great feast in the palace to celebrate Hannah's safe return. Teho sat at a table of honor, still wearing his simple gardener's clothes among all the nobles in their fine silks. He fell out of place, but Hannah stayed by his side, and that made everything better. The next morning, a royal carriage took Teho back to his village. Hannah came along for the ride, chattering excitedly about all the things she wanted to show him in the palace someday. When they reached his small house, everything was exactly as he left it. Tejo checked his garden immediately. To his surprise, the plants looked even healthier than before. Boare appeared from her house next door, grinning. "I watered them for you," she said. "I had a feeling you would return safely." Shrewd her word, Hannah visited every week. Sometimes she came alone, sometimes with guards, but she always came. She helped in the garden, learned to cook simple meals, and listened to Tejo's stories. The villagers grew used to seeing a dragon princess pulling weeds and picking vegetables like a common farmer. Years passed. The garden flourished. Hannah grew bigger and stronger, but never too busy to visit her first true friend. And Tejo, the simple gardener who once lost everything, found that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change the entire world. In his small garden at the edge of a quiet village, a human and a dragon proved that friendship knows no boundaries, and that compassion is the greatest power of all.